Hello, and welcome to today's class. My name is Dr. Ann Smith, and I have been in academia for over 2 decades, teaching and engaging with learners across a range of disciplines. Today, we'll be learning topics in psychology, breaking down complex educational content into clear, simple, and accessible ideas. Toward the end, we'll also look at a few situational questions. Let's begin.
Introduction. In this module, we will study the biological basis of behavior, an important foundation area in psychology. This field helps us understand how the brain, nervous system, and biological processes influence our thoughts, emotions, and actions. Biopsychology connects psychology with biology and neuroscience, making it essential for understanding human and animal behavior from a scientific perspective. What is biological psychology? Biological psychology is the scientific study of how biological processes influence behavior and mental experiences. Therefore, it examines the physiology of the brain, the evolutionary basis of behavior, the development of the nervous system. Biological psychology is also known by several other names, such as biopsychology, psychobiology, physiological psychology, behavioral neuroscience. All these terms refer to the same idea, studying behavior by focusing on the brain and nervous system. Now, have you ever wondered about the relationship between neuroscience and biopsychology? Neuroscience is the scientific study of the anatomy, chemistry, and physiology of the nervous system. Biopsychology is a closely related branch of neuroscience. It uses information from neuroscience to understand human behavior, animal behavior, mental processes such as learning, memory, and emotion. In short, neuroscience studies the nervous system. Biopsychology applies that knowledge to behavior. Next, let us look into the nature and scope of biopsychology. Biopsychologists aim to scientifically investigate how biological processes interact with psychological processes such as cognition, emotions, motivation, behavior. A major contribution to this field was made by Donald Olding Hebb. His 1949 book, The Organization of Behavior, laid the foundation for modern biopsychology by explaining how neural connections influence learning and behavior. Biopsychologists also draw knowledge from other disciplines within neuroscience to better understand behavior. Important disciplines related to biopsychology are mainly 6 categories. They are 1. Neuroanatomy, where this is the study of the structure of the nervous system, including brain spinal cord neurons. Understanding structure helps explain function. 2. Neurochemistry, which is this field studies the chemical processes in the nervous system, such as neurotransmitters, chemical signals between neurons. These chemicals play a key role in mood, learning, and behavior. 3. Neuropathology. Neuropathology deals with the study of disorders of the nervous system, including brain injuries, degenerative diseases, infections affecting the brain. 4. Neuroendocrinology. This field studies the interaction between the nervous system and the endocrine system. Hormones released by glands influence. Stress, growth, emotions, behavior. 5. Neuropharmacology. Neuropharmacology studies the effects of drugs on neural activity. It helps us understand how medicines, drugs, substances affect brain functioning and behavior. 6. Neurophysiology. This is the study of how the nervous system functions, including electrical activity of neurons, communication within the brain. Divisions in biopsychology itself have been separated into few branches. They are 1. Physiological psychology. This branch uses controlled experiments, often with animals, to stimulate specific brain areas, observe changes in behavior. The goal is to understand how neural mechanisms control behavior. 2. Psychopharmacology. Psychopharmacologists study how drugs affect behavior by stimulating or inhibiting neural systems. Observing behavioral changes, this is especially important in mental health treatment. 3. Neuropsychology. Neuropsychologists study people with brain injuries or brain damage. They use neuropsychological tests to identify cognitive impairments, diagnose conditions, plan rehabilitation and treatment. 4. Psychophysiology. Psychophysiologists study the relationship between physiological activity and psychological processes. They use non-invasive techniques to measure attention, memory, emotions, learning. 5. Cognitive neuroscience. This field focuses on the neural basis of cognition, including thinking memory, attention perception. It explains how higher mental processes are represented in the brain. 6. Comparative psychology. Comparative psychologists study different species to understand behavior from evolutionary genetic adaptive perspectives. This helps explain why certain behaviors exist. Methods to study biopsychology. What do you understand by ablation methods? Ablation refers to the removal or destruction of a part of the brain to study its function. This method is invasive and creates a lesion, which is an injury to brain tissue. Types of ablation methods are as follows. 1. Aspiration, where tissue is removed using a thin needle. The tissue is examined under a microscope. 2. Radiofrequency lesions are in which radio waves are used to create subcortical lesions. 3. Knife cuts are specific brain areas or nerve pathways are cut. 4. Cryogenic blockade. Temporary lesions are created using cold temperatures. Neurons regain function once the area warms up. 5. Nerve poisons chemicals like kynic acid are used to destroy specific neurons. Histological methods. Histological methods are used for microscopic examination of brain tissue. They help researchers study cell structure, neuronal organization, psychophysiological recording methods. These are non-invasive techniques used with human participants, including EEG, electroencephalography, magnetoencephalography, electromyography, electrooculography, electrodermal activity. They help measure physiological responses related to psychological processes. Electrical and chemical stimulation. Electrical stimulation. Electrical currents stimulate brain areas. Helps understand neural functioning. Chemical stimulation. Drugs are administered through injections or tubes, used to stimulate or inhibit brain activity. Neuroimaging techniques. Neuroimaging refers to visualizing the brain. Structural imaging X-rays, CT scan, combines multiple X-ray images to create a 3D view. MRI uses magnetic fields to produce detailed brain images. Some examples of functional imaging: PET scan measures metabolic activity, DTI maps neural pathways, TMS temporarily inactivates specific cortical areas using magnetic fields. Neuropsychological assessments. Neuropsychological tests assess memory, intelligence, language, executive functions, decision-making. Common tests include Wechsler, Intelligence Scale, Halstead-Rayton Battery, Luria Nebraska Battery, Wisconsin Card Sorting Test, Digit Span Test, Dichotic Listening Test. Research ethics in biopsychology. Ethical guidelines must be strictly followed in research involving human participants, animal subjects. Guidelines are provided by American Psychological Association, Indian Council of Medical Research. When animals are used, proper care must be ensured. Procedures should be justified. Harm should be minimized. Let us summarize today's session by understanding that biopsychology helps us understand behavior by linking biological processes with psychological experiences. It integrates neuroscience, psychology, and research ethics to provide a scientific explanation of behavior. This foundation is essential for advanced studies in psychology, neuroscience, and mental health. Now, let us look into few situational questions. Please share your answers in the comment box. 1. A patient shows difficulty in planning, attention, and emotional regulation after a head injury. As a psychology student, which branch of biopsychology would be most appropriate to study this case, and why? The second question is, a researcher wants to study how specific brain regions control behavior, but wishes to minimize permanent damage. Which research method would be most suitable? Third question. A psychologist wants to examine attention and emotional responses in human participants without using invasive procedures. Which method would be appropriate and why? Please share your answers in the comment box. Next question is, a clinician needs a detailed image of a patient's brain structure to investigate possible abnormalities. Which neuroimaging technique should be chosen? And the last question is, why are ethical guidelines especially important in biopsychological research involving animals?